Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking about the Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters movie that came out a couple of years ago. I did another video talking about the Lightning Thief movie that came out. It's rant review. It's more of a rant and less of a review. I'll put a card up there, and I'm also doing a reread of Percy Jackson and like talking about all the books. So yeah, I know that Disney is gonna have like a Disney Plus show of Percy Jackson, so think of this as a what not to do, because this movie is very, very bad. I have just finished watching it for the last time, I hope. I'm suffering. This is one of the worst decisions I have ever made. I was fine like before I started. I was like, oh, it's not that bad. Like I'm not gonna be that upset to have to rewatch it. But I hate it. I can't. I'll talk about it in this video. I have my notes right here, and let's just get right into it. I'm gonna go through the movie chronologically and point out everything that I hate about it and like the one thing I like about it, which I'll get to. So the movie starts out with like underwater opening shots, and there's like a narration by Percy that's explaining Talia's backstory. If you read the book, you know that like this is the book in which Talia's like Annabeth, Talia, Grover, and Luke's like journey to camp is kind of, hold on, I'm crooked, in which their journey to camp is like explained, like how, you know, they were like traveling together and like the Cyclops, how Talia died, etc, etc. The thing is that in the book it like comes out because, you know, Percy and Annabeth are like talking to each other, and Annabeth is like, oh, like this is the reason that like I'm not okay with Tyson. This is gonna have spoilers for like everything, by the way. I should have said that at the start. So that's the reason that like she tells him everything. And this one, it's just like narration by Percy, and he just like explains everything, which is, it's not necessarily bad, but I think it really does kind of take away a lot of the gravitas. It's a lot more harrowing in the book, I think. Just because it's not delivered in this way where Percy just like turns to camera and is like, this is what happened. Also, Logan Lerman sounds depressed when he's narrating. Please never let him narrate anything again. They use that font in which like the E's are sigmas, like the Greek looking font. Sigmas or S's, like basic. This is basic. Why are you doing this to me, movie? It's not, we're not even like a minute into the movie yet, and I already hate it. It's sigmas or S's. Like, please don't do that, okay? Don't do that. Like, don't do that. Just put a serif on it. It'll look fancy. Like, you don't have to do this. Just write it in Greek. I don't know. So yeah, that bothered me. Percy says four of these children. Grover is a satyr, so he's like not a half-blood. Little nitpick for you. And then it cuts to like present day, and it's been a year since Lightning Thief. All of the campers, or not all of them, but like a lot of the campers are doing this like obstacle thing where there was like this weird tower of like things that you have to get to the top, and they're all trying to get to the top and get this ring. It's kind of lame, mostly because in the book they have a lava like rock climbing wall. That sounds terrifying. Why didn't you use that? Just CGI some lava and like it'll be great. It'll be fantastic. I think that's just kind of dumb. Clarice is finally here. She should have been in the first movie, but I guess they just forgot about her, like they forgot about literally everything else as well. Clarice is not ripped enough, but she's really pretty, and I do like that. Like, she's hot. 10 out of 10. Annabeth is finally blonde because I guess she bleached her hair. I don't know why they didn't just like, I'm shedding hair. I don't know why they didn't just like make her blonde in the first movie. Like, I don't know what the issue was with that, and because like Alexandra Daddario was like clearly fine with bleaching her hair, or like if she's not gonna be blonde, like why don't you just leave her as a brunette? Like it's like why are you like doing this thing? Why are you, especially because like the fact that they made her blonde, it seems like, oh, they're trying to get more of the book right, but then they don't. This movie sucks. Dionysus is also here. He was in the first movie. He is also like an idiot, and he's not supposed to be. He's a god. Like he's not supposed to be stupid. Like what? He can't drink wine because of God Zeus angry, and Zeus is like, okay, no wine, and also like go babysit children. And he like in the books he just like can't drink wine, but he still has like all of his powers and stuff. In this he doesn't have his powers. He has like reverse powers where he pours wine and it like turns into water, and he keeps like taking wine bottles and like pouring wine out of them and watching it turn to water, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, you're not dumb. He's not stupid. I mean, he might be stupid in like other ways, but like not in this way. Like he has like basic understanding of like how things work. I don't know, that's just, I think that's dumb. Chiron's actor gets changed. I don't care. Honestly, what bothered me a lot more was that Chiron shouldn't even be at camp. In the book, he gets blamed for poisoning Talia's tree, and he gets like exiled. And then instead of Chiron, Tantalus, from like the guy who fed his children to the gods, Tantalus gets his like job is like the activities director at camp. And I mean, you know, that's like a part of like that book. They didn't do that. I think more than Tantalus having to be in it, I think Chiron needs to get kicked out of the camp, because in the book the reason is that Atlas is his father. I don't know if that's like consistent throughout like a lot of versions of the myths, but like that's the version that the book went with. So like, you know, obviously people are like suspecting Kronos, and like Atlas is like allied with Kronos because he's also a Titan, and he's like the father of Chiron, so they're like, that's why they're suspicious of him. Like that's why it's relevant. In this book they don't do that. Dionysus, I know how to say words. Dionysus's actor is like, I guess he looks like him, but like he's not acting like Dionysus. That's not his fault. That's the scriptwriter's fault. He's not intimidating. He's a god. He should be intimidating. Like sometimes he should be intimidating, not all of the time, obviously, because like that's not like the kind of vibe that he gives off in the books. But like in the books, Mr. D is like there's this one scene where Percy gets like summoned to the big house, and they're just like, oh, it's probably just like Mr. D, and I'm just like, dude, he's a god. Like no one should be so chill about like being summoned by a god for seemingly like a terribly like, yeah, like they're all worried about like, or not they're all, but like Percy's worried about like why he got summoned. He's like, I didn't do anything. So the point is that Dionysus is not intimidating, and he should be. Even if it's not like all of the time, or like not like very intimidating to like every single person, but like Grover should be terrified of him because like he's a satyr, and satyrs like really look up to Dionysus because of all the whole grave nature stuff, and like they do in the books. They hold him in very high regard. So like he should be like hanging on his every word. Instead he's like, oh no, Mr. D is just like, that's nothing, which is weird. Back to the actual scene that's going on. There's this guy that like his foot gets stuck in the ladder and he's like getting dragged around, and Percy like goes down to save him instead of winning, and I'm just like, Percy, he's not gonna die. Like he's gonna be fine. What are you doing? Like just just go win the thing. You win the thing, the whole weird turny thing will stop. Like you don't, it's, you know, you're not, if they wanted to show that Percy like cares about saving other people and stuff, this is not the way to do it, because he wasn't in danger. He was just like kind of uncomfortable, and like it wasn't that bad. Like Percy would have done better to just go up like the one level instead of like going all the way down and like saving him, which that was just dumb. The book starts in school where Percy and Tyson already know each other, and they've known each other for the year pretty much, and the movie starts with everyone already being at camp. This changes like a couple of the things from the book. Mostly it changes the fact that Percy and Tyson don't already know each other, so like pretty much all of their character development in the book, it happens like, you know, all of their like getting closer to each other, it happens over like a couple of days, like a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. The book isn't like super tight on the timelines, but it's not like very long at all. In the book, they've known each other for a while, so like when Percy finds out like all of this stuff about Tyson, he like there's more to it. It's not just like some random guy that he just met. Like it's his friend who he's known for a while now. So I don't really think that's good in this movie, because they don't do anything with the changes. They just change them and then they're like, it's different now. The other thing that gets changed because of Percy not starting off being at school and starting off being at camp is that he's not like left out of the loop from regarding all of the like danger that's going on at camp. Like he knows as much as everyone else, and in, you know, like in the earlier books especially, he like gets left out of things because people are like, they're doing stuff and then they don't tell him, and that's just like a part of like kind of like his dynamic, I guess, with the rest of the people at camp. Like other people just always seem to know more than him, and like I guess they have to, because, you know, he's like the reader surrogate, so he can't know everything. He can't like go away for like, you know, between books and like learn everything and then come back and we're like, who are you now? Like, why do you know everything? Why don't I know anything? Because then like there would be no opportunity for us to get things explained to us. But what they've done in the movie is just that everyone's really dumb and or they just like change the events around. I don't know if I like that, mostly because I just don't like it. When the camp gets attacked in the books, it's, you know, Percy gets to camp, it's being attacked. The next morning, camp is being attacked. And then he decides to go on the quest after like being there for 2 days, and both of the days camp gets attacked. In this one, camp gets attacked one time, so, you know, it's not, there's no like ongoing danger. In the books, you know that it's been like this for a while, that like for you don't know like what exactly like time period it is, but like, you know, for at least like a couple of days to weeks, it's been like in this situation where like people, like monsters are like attacking the camp, and like kids have patrols in secret to like hide from Tantalus, who's an asshole. But like in the movie, it's just like one time, and I feel like the danger just doesn't seem like it's there as much, and more especially because you don't really get the sense that they're like attached to camp. In the books there's like a lot more time, so even though the book doesn't spend like a lot of time being at camp, there's like, you know, there are like people at camp, they like interact with them. There's like, you know, a couple of paragraphs or something that are like about being at camp, which this movie just lacks. So there's just like not as much of an attachment to camp, and it doesn't really feel like you care as much about the danger, because it's not as like serious as it seems in the books, and the camp is not like as emotionally important to you, I guess, as it is in the books. It would after the obstacle thing, Percy like starts moping about being like a one quest wonder. It's fine. They don't really do that much with it. They just have like one or two moments like later that kind of reference that. There's no character work that comes out of it. Like all of the beats he hits are just like from the book. It's like he does the thing that like book Percy does, and then he has like the same emotional reaction to it, even though he's like definitely a different character to book Percy, because book Percy isn't an asshole. Reference to my first video on this movie situation. So yeah, there's Clarisse like teases Percy, and like that's when I was like, the way that she's like bullying him, it's honestly, it doesn't even look like bullying. It just looks like, haha, dumbass, which is something I would say to my friend. But like as a bully, Clarisse sucks. Like she's not a great bully in this, and like that's kind of her whole purpose in like the books, like as a character. In like the initial books, like that's kind of like what she does as a character. Like that's her archetype, is that she's a bully, and she like later gets redeemed by being very angry and like killing monsters, which is great because I love her. I think the like Clarisse like getting to Percy stuff would have worked a lot better if she were actually in the first movie, and they like set up this relationship between Percy and Clarisse where Clarisse is like fuck you and Percy's like shut up. I don't know, I just like she's a completely new character. You don't get the sense that they've like known each other for like any amount of time, because you remember the last movie. I mean, well, if you have a terrible fortune like me, then you remember the last movie and doing a whole video on it, and you remember that there was no goddamn Clarisse. This is like completely new. They're just pulling this out of their ass. Anyway, now that I've spent like way too much time on that like one beginning scene, let's move on to the next scene, which is Tyson's introduction. Tyson's introduction. Here are the problems that I have with Tyson in this movie. He's a completely different character, which I wouldn't have a problem with it if they did anything with it that was remotely interesting, but like they don't do anything with it. Like it doesn't matter. They're still trying to go for the same like Percy and Tyson relationship and dynamic that is there in the books. It's just that it doesn't work because Percy and Tyson are not only different characters, but they haven't known each other for the same amount of time or in the same situation. They don't even meet under the same circumstances. Like everything is different. So it just doesn't work. That's one of the problems I have with Tyson. Another thing is like when he gets introduced, it's like a point of view shot from like Tyson's point of view, and it's Chiron and Mr. D, and they're like, he just walked in through the barrier. He can't do that. He's a Cyclops. He's a monster. The barrier doesn't let monsters in. That's literally the whole point of the barrier. Like that's literally, there's one point of the barrier. It's to keep the Half-Bloods safe. And like it, that literally defeats the purpose of having a barrier if monsters can just walk in. Like they never explain why like Tyson can walk in but not any other monsters when the barrier is up. They're not like, oh, this is because the barrier is like weakening. I thought that's what they were gonna say, but no, the barrier's fine. He just walks in. They're both, Dionysus says something like, he's a god spawn, but which god or something. And I'm just like, in the books, for sure, everyone knows that like Cyclops are usually like children of Poseidon, and I'm like like, you are a god, like, you know Poseidon personally, like, you should know this stuff. And he's just stupid, and it bothers me. Tyson is like, Poseidon is my father, and Chiron, when he's talking to Percy, like later in the next scene or something, he's like, there's another heir of Poseidon. Cyclops aren't heirs of Poseidon, because if they were, there would literally be like several thousand to million heirs of Poseidon. Like, they're not. Like, do you know how many children that guy has? If every single child he had like counted as an heir, he would have like 1,000,000 heirs, and he doesn't. So there's the next scene in which they're all sitting in the pavilion eating, and it really bothers me that they don't have like the magic food plate thing. I guess it was like too much for like the effects team or something, but I just want Percy to eat blue food because he loves his mom. His mom's not even in this. It's, these movies just hate Sally Jackson, so that sucks for me personally. He says something like to Grover while Tyson's sitting right there, and it's super mean. I don't remember what it is because I forgot to write it down, but he even in the books, like when he was like, I feel like my dad is like, you know, like getting back at me or like embarrassing me. He was never outright mean to Tyson because he's not an asshole. It's just, Percy isn't a mean person. He's very sweet. And I think it's that they would like change his character to be like worse, like as a person, and also as a character, but like in this case as a person, they don't do anything with it. It's, yeah, like in the books also he's mean to Tyson, or like not mean to Tyson, but he like doesn't appreciate him and stuff, and he like apologizes to him and stuff later. He like comes to terms, he's like, oh yeah, like I've made a mistake. Why don't you just do that? Why don't you just go, oh, like, why don't you just do what they did in the books because it worked? Like, why are you changing things that were perfectly fine? None of these things need to be changed. Tyson is given like spray on mist. I think this is later in the movie, but I have something about mist. He's given like spray on mist. I don't know why they were doing that, because there are clearly times, there's like the time when the hippocampus comes to shore and they just like get on it and go, and there are mortals around them. Why don't you just say that the mortals will see what like mortal stuff is, and then just do the thing where you don't CGI his eyes, and it's fine. Like, you don't have to make like a weird thing that confuses the magic that's like already been set up. It's weird. Camp is attacked by the bulls. Percy in this fight in the movie is completely useless, except for like right at the end. It kind of bothers me because like at this point in the books he was like one of the best sword fighters at camp. People were like, he's the best sword fighter since Luke, like that, like that's the status he'd been elevated to. And he sucks in these fights. He's so terrible. That's just another thing. Clarice gets her ass kicked. Clarice, of all people, should not be getting her ass kicked. She's a daughter of Ares, and she is like one of like the strongest like campers. Like, she's really good at fighting. If there's one thing she's good at, it's fighting. So of all the people at camp to get their ass kicked, it shouldn't be Clarice. Luke comes to camp to threaten Percy, and then he teleports away. He has this like little medallion thing, and he like teleports away. They're introducing new magic into this world, how does that thing work? What is it? Like, why is it here? Why do you feel the need to add more like cool magic stuff? There's already cool magic stuff. There are gods. Percy's freaking pen is a sword. Like, what? Yeah, okay. Like, it's dumb. Also, he should have given Percy his like evil elevator pitch in the last movie. So that's like more stuff that they didn't do in the last movie and they're like rushing to do now. Grover shouldn't be at camp. He should be searching for Pan, like the god. Honestly, like that's like kind of Percy's whole call to action, is the fact that he has to go save Grover. So I don't know why they changed that, because he has to go save Grover anyway. Why didn't they just leave Pet in, and like why didn't they do that? It would have helped with more tension. And then Chiron reveals the prophecy to Percy, or like he reveals it there, like, is a prophecy, and then he's like, go see the oracle and she'll tell you the prophecy. Like, he shouldn't do that. Chiron is like several thousand years old. He's seen a lot of heroes die. They don't even know if the prophecy is about Percy yet. They shouldn't be revealing it to him now. What the oracle says isn't a prophecy. I mean, she gets to the prophecy eventually, but like before that, there's this like prologue, this like short story about like Kronos and stuff, and I'm like, dude, that's not how prophecies work in Percy Jackson. Like, why are you changing everything? It's not like it's getting better because you decided to make prophecies have like a whole story element to them. Prophecies are supposed to be confusing as that's like the whole point of having a prophecy, is that it's confusing as like you find out what the prophecy is and you're like, this makes absolutely no sense, and you think something terrible is gonna happen and you're like, oh no, what the hell? Like that's how prophecies work. Also, they change the prophecy to be worse. Here's the dealio. The prophecy in the books is a half-blood of the eldest gods will reach 16 against the odds and against all odds, and see the world in endless sleep. Hero, soul, cursed blade shall reap something blah, blah, blah. In this, they changed it from hero soul cursed blade shall reap to the evil soul cursed blade shall reap. Like, they changed hero's soul to evil soul. That honestly, it pissed me off so much. I had to like pause the movie for like several minutes and just like sit there and be like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? In Greece, a hero wasn't someone who was, you know, like righteous or chivalrous. It was someone who was like physically strong and capable, first of all. Second of all, now that they've changed it from hero soul to evil soul, like, he's like, you know, I'm clearly not evil. He's never gonna dwell on that. They just decided to throw that out the window. They were like, we don't need interesting things to happen to our characters. We don't need them to think about things, because that is for stupid people. They have this whole bit where they're like, oh, all of the satyrs are like dying because they're looking for the fleece. They're not looking for the fleece. They're looking for Pan, the god of the wild, and they're trying to find him by following the trail of nature magic. And the fleece also has very strong nature magic, and that's why they keep ending up finding the fleece, because Pan, get this, because Pan has nature magic and the fleece has nature magic. Like, it's so dumb. Like, why change that? Why change that? Why would you ever change that? Like, Like, why, what is it, how is this helping? How is not having satyrs look for Pan and having them look for the fleece instead, how is that making the story any better? Like, Grover was already brave enough, like, before, when all he was doing was like looking for Pan. No satyr had ever come back from that. Like, it's not like he needed to be more brave or anything. Like, he's doing fine. Also, the fact that Grover is searching for Pan is like a pretty big plot point. I forgot to mention this, but it's pretty significant in quite a lot of the books. So the fact that they took it out is just like, what are you gonna do with those parts of the book? Dionysus is like making an announcement to all of the campers at the campfire, and he's talking about how they're gonna have a quest to look for the golden fleece because that can save Talia's tree. And he has like notes on his hand, and I'm like, you're a goddamn Greek god, you know what the golden fleece is. Like, he's not stupid, he's annoying, yes, and he's stupid in the way that like all of the gods in this book are, because like they're so dumb. But like he knows things because, get this, he was probably there when the fleece was made. I mean, it's so dumb. He's very old, you know. He's been around for a while. He probably knows what this very famous like Greek mythology artifact is. It's so dumb, and there's no reason that they have to make him dumb. Clarisse gets the quest, but she doesn't get a prophecy, which is really annoying because like a lot of what was getting to Clarisse during the book was from the prophecy that she got that said you will fail without friends. But then she doesn't get a prophecy, and she, I mean, like, she does fail without friends, I guess. Like if the friends weren't there, then she would have failed like in that way. But I don't know. It's just, it's like, why don't you just have the prophecy? It'll only get better. Also, they say that Riptide belongs to Poseidon. Riptide in this like book series, they say that Riptide belonged to Hercules. Like, they say that. Like, that's what they say in Titan's Curse. Zoe is like, oh, that sword, it belonged to Hercules. And like, Titan's Curse is really good, okay? I don't know why you're changing stuff for that. At this point they leave for the quest. Tyson is like, you do it for me. He keeps saying that. The thing is, if this were book Tyson saying that, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. This is movie Tyson. He just met Percy like earlier that day. And it's not like the book Tyson where he's like 8 years old. Like, he's definitely not 8. He's definitely a lot older than that. He kind of gives off the vibe that he's just like, he's like Percy's age, but he just, you know, doesn't have a lot of friends. Like, that's the kind of like, that's the way they've like written Tyson, is that he just like doesn't get social interaction because he lives in the forest and everyone's terrified of him. But he's like Percy's age. He speaks like that. Like, they changed his character, so now that doesn't work anymore because he doesn't have blind faith in people like a child, because he is no longer a child. So like, you can't have both. You can't be like, oh, he's like, you know, older, but also he's like a child. That doesn't work. Grover is like, we should take Tyson. There is no reason that Grover should say that, because like the reason that Annabeth doesn't like Cyclops is the same reason that Grover shouldn't like Cyclops. Like, they were both there. Talia died because of a Cyclops. Like, it's just, there's no reason. If Annabeth is like, oh, I'm not like gonna trust this guy, then Grover should be like, oh yeah, I'm good though. Doesn't make sense, but like, nothing in this book makes sense. So there's that. At this point, Grover like smells. He breathes in, he smells. Grover like breathes in, and he's like, oh, it's somewhere off the coast of Florida, and I'm just like, this is why demigods have dreams in the books. It's so that they can get all this information without it sounding like the writers are just pulling it out of their ass. Like that's why Percy dreamt about that. It's like he's dreaming and then he's like, oh, like I've like gathered all of the information from the dreams that I had. Now I know like all of the things I need to know to succeed on this quest. But no. The Chariot of Eternal Damnation appears now instead of earlier. Grover, of all of them, is like, what the hell is that? Or like, it looks like a taxi or something. He should know. He's like double their age. Like, he's more than double their age. Why does he not know? He's a goddamn satyr. He spent his whole life living in this world. Like, of all of the people, Grover should be like, oh yeah, I heard about that in the myths. I didn't know that you could just like summon them like that. That's pretty cool. Like, they ask the ladies in the Chariot of Eternal Damnation to take them to Florida, and they're like, solid. If they can just go anywhere in the Chariot of Eternal Damnation, why didn't they just take some drachmas and take the goddamn Chariot of Eternal Damnation on a little road trip around the US in the last movie? Like, why didn't they do that? Clearly that's the only logical thing to do. If you could literally just get from point A to point B and like that, but you want to go on like a bus? Why? What's wrong with you? You're on a time limit. You have 10 days. God. The nautical coordinates that the ladies give them have nothing to do with the Great Prophecy. It's a different prophecy to the Great Prophecy, like, but it's fine. And also in the book, it wasn't like a prophecy, it was just like, oh, he wants to know where to go, and now we're telling him because we're like cryptic ladies and, you know, a children's book. Nectar isn't like a drink that's for entertainment. It's a drink that you drink to like heal yourself when you're about to die. In the books they have to be careful to not drink too much of it because they will spontaneously combust. But in this they're like, you haven't lived. And I'm like, why are you changing that? Like, how is this better? How is this better than what the book has? This is not better. This is worse. This sounds like a goddamn drug. Like, they don't even say like what nectar like is or tastes like. They're just like, you haven't lived. And I'm like, what the f are you doing? The coffee shop they go to has like monsters serving the drinks. Not everything has to be magic. Like, just saying, not everything has to be magic. I know your characters are like demigods, but not everything they do has to be magic, really. They can just go to a normal coffee shop and have normal coffee. That scene adds nothing at all. The fact that there's only one Hecatoncheires, I don't know how to pronounce that right, left is, it's a plot point in Battle of the Labyrinth. Like, it's a very significant plot point in Battle of the Labyrinth. So like, why are you changing that? Also, he doesn't have 100 arms, he has like 8. So I'm just saying. Also, there's this line where Tyson is like, how cool is that? And Percy says Arctic. Oh my god, who the fuck talks like that? I just want to know. And I want to talk to them because that sounds like such an entertaining conversation. Like, imagine if you're like, oh my god, that's so cool. How cool is that? And they're like, Arctic. They're like, Antarctic. And they're like, Mount Everest. They just start naming places that are very cold. God, that would be so funny. The script writers for this movie are like so... I don't know whether to call them like idiots or like literary geniuses on it. This is fucking hilarious. They have this plot point where Grover gets kidnapped. If they just followed the book, they wouldn't have to have that, because Grover would already be in the place where they have to go to get the fleece. Like it just seems like you didn't put any thought into this. Luke was actually smart in the books. There was a reason he wasn't going into the Sea of Monsters, and that's because it's freaking dangerous. Like, he didn't want to do that to himself, which is why he was like, oh, Percy will, like, do it, and then I'll just steal it from him, because that's a lot easier than, like, going to the Sea of Monsters myself to get it. But they made him dumb in this, I guess. Nathan Fillion as Hermes, I like that. That's, like, the only thing I like about this book, apart from the fact that Clarice is hot. The Caduceus is his symbol of power, and someone is just, like, handing it to him. I'm like, why would he let it go? The last movie was about the fact that Zeus doesn't have his symbol of power with himself on his person. Like, why would Hermes be like, yeah, you can have that. Just bring it back to me in like 5 minutes. Someone could steal that shit and run off and be like, now I'm Hermes. I don't know. Hermes in the book asks Percy to go help Luke. Like, he like seeks him out. He's like, Percy, listen, please help my son. He is a dumbass. That's basically what he says. That's like the gist of it. In this, he also asks Percy to help Luke, but like he's a lot more, I don't know, grounded in the books, because I guess he just like looks like a regular dude. He's just like on the beach. He isn't in like a weird Amazon facility. Firefly joke. Love that. Love Firefly. Good show. Got cancelled. Nathan Fillion is still making those jokes all these years later. Honestly, I feel kind of bad for him. The tape thing is okay, I guess. The whole point of Percy Jackson is that they meet people from Greek myths. That's why they have the vitamins and the Circe Spa Island thing. It's like a reimagining of the Circe from the myths, but it's like Circe from the myths lives in the 21st century now. Like, that's that. Like, that's why that happens. That's kind of the whole point of like these books, is that they are like now, and the myths are reimagined to be in the now world. I know how to say things. Yeah, it's just kind of like disappointing, I guess, because they think they're better. They think it's like a good idea to like change that, but it honestly like doesn't matter. Hermes should already know where Luke is, because first of all, he's God, and second of all, he's the god of travelers. Like, if there's any god who should know where like someone is, it should be the god of goddamn travelers. Like, what the also, he like hands someone his Caduceus when he's like, oh, like, find out where he is. What? Why can't they just use their like god power? You're a god, you have god powers. I don't know. Once again, Tyson's prayers get answered, and they don't do anything with this. They just keep showing like Tyson's prayers are getting answered, Percy's prayers are not getting answered, Tyson's prayers are getting answered, and then at the end they're like, oh, Percy's prayer like got answered, and I'm like, you didn't do anything with this. You're just like, oh, this sucks for Percy. Never mind, it doesn't suck anymore. Percy didn't go anywhere. He didn't become like a more interesting character because he wasn't getting what he wanted. He was still an asshole the whole time to Tyson, because like Tyson was getting what he wanted. Sounds like Percy has some issues. Percy can talk to marine creatures in the books. Honestly, they could have, that's like great for comic relief. Like, Percy can talk to a horse. It'll be fun. I know horses aren't marine creatures. He can also talk to horses because his dad like made horses. But y'all know that because you made it this far into this video. The Princess Andromeda is supposed to be a cruise that has like basically an army of monsters and like demigods who are on Luke's side, but it's not. It's just like a yacht. I guess they didn't have like the budget to get like a whole cruise ship to film on, so they just settled for like a yacht. So that's that. There's a scene where like three of the demigods on that ship are like talking, and then Annabeth like turns to Percy and she's like, that's like these people, and she says Helena Beauregard. What? Did they want this to be the last movie in this series? Because like the fact that Helena Beauregard is a spy is like a very significant plot point in the last book. It like the things she does actually make a difference. Like that's why so many people like remember her. It's like that's why her character is so significant. I don't know. There's no scene where they're like eavesdropping on Luke, so you don't get the whole like Cyclops like voice imitation thing, which I think is a shame because that's creepy as goddamn hell. And I think if they show that, you could really kind of like get where Annabeth is coming from, when she's like, oh, I like don't want to associate with Cyclops, but they don't have that, so that sucks. Then there's like the scene where they escape. Percy's on the roof. There's a line where Luke is like, what are you doing on my roof, or like, stop walking on my roof. Every single line Luke has in this movie is like hilarious. Also, Percy has no power call. Like he just like, it's like he gets introduced and like he's immediately like the most powerful character who's around. He does like the wave thing. I'm like, Percy shouldn't be able to do that. He just started out, dude. He just started out being a demigod. Yeah, I don't know. The plot is just dumb. The wave thing, when Percy like Annabeth and Tyson get on the boat and like escape, and then Percy like makes a wave and he like wave surfs off. That was cool, I do admit. But also, why is Luke able to do that? Like, Luke is like walking on it. It's water. Percy is controlling the water. Like you could reasonably see how like Percy would be able to do that since he has like magic water powers. Luke doesn't have magic water powers. Why can Luke walk on water? Huh? What the another thing is that right after that they end up like meeting Charybdis. Basically, like they like get trapped in like Charybdis's like whirlpool basically, and she swallows them. And the thing about that is, when you get swallowed by Charybdis, you die. You die, like you die. Not you don't like end up in her stomach. And oh god, the plot of this movie is so dumb. So they get trapped in her whirlpool. Annabeth says Percy's like, I can't control the water. And Annabeth is like, Sea of Monsters might not be in Poseidon's domain. And I'm like, why? He's the god of the sea. It's the Sea of Monsters. What the No, in the books they were like, Charybdis is too strong. Later in the books, he does control things while being in the Sea of Monsters, which, you know, it like makes sense when you're up against an entity who is like a lot older than you and a lot stronger than you. Maybe your powers won't work because, you know, they're just, that entity is just stronger than you are. Annabeth in this book doesn't do anything. They're in the gut, in the stomach, in the gut, whatever. They're inside Charybdis, like being digested, or like about to be digested. And Annabeth is like, Percy, and I was like, Annabeth literally hasn't done anything in this movie. She did like one thing at the start where she was like, we should go look for the fleece. Like, that was it. Like, she doesn't do anything. She just talks. And I don't know. I think it's such a shame that like they did that to Annabeth, because in the book she's she's a great like character. Like she's very what's it called? Like, yeah, Percy fights a lot. So does Annabeth. She's right there with him, knives out. I want to say knives out, but she has one knife and it's out and she's ready to fight. And I'm like, yes, like she's you know, she's here to fight. But like not in these books. I would just like to formally apologize for the number of times that I've said books instead of movies. I'm really sorry. They shoot Charybdis and they get out because she like explodes or something. I don't know. And then that's stupid. And then Percy's like perfect bearings or like map lines like on the water. I think that looks really dumb. I think they could have just had Percy say like, oh, I know exactly where we are, geographically speaking. But no, that would be too simple, and they wanted to do something dumb with their CGI budget, so they did that, and it was stupid. Annabeth like keeps looking at the like pine needles that she like took from the tree, and it's like withering, and of course it's withering. You have one pine needle. It's been like several days. Of course it's dying. It's not attached to the goddamn tree anymore. Like yes, Talia's tree is dying, but like this pine needle is dying because you took it because it's not attached to the tree. It fell off. Like of course it's dying. Like I don't know. That was dumb. Tyson is like, oh, like Polyphemus lives in like this island that has Cersei land, and I'm like, why do you know this? Like, why would you have this knowledge? Like, of all people, why you like? I'm like, you live in a goddamn forest, Tyson. Why do you know these things? Like, who did you meet in this forest who told you anything of importance? And like, why did you never say anything about that before? Because before he was like, oh, like kids just like, you know, like saw me and like screamed. Like I don't know. Cersei Land is dumb because it's not like a reimagining of the myth. It's just like, oh, that sounds cool, which like, yeah, okay, sure, like a theme park owned by a witch, I would love to see that, but it's not like the point of like having Cersei appear in Percy Jackson. Like the point is that it's like Cersei from the Greek myths, and it's like, you know, what she's doing is kind of similar. She's getting people and she's trapping them on an island, and instead of turning men into pigs, she's turning them into guinea pigs. Like very on brand for her. But yeah, there at this point I was like, there's no siren scene, and I'm really mad because scenes like that is, I think that those are like what really make a book good. The siren scene is, you know, like that's an important like development for Annabeth. Annabeth is so you know, she like all she wants is to like have, yeah, like this is her dream. Like you get to see her dream. You get to see like what her fatal flaw is. She like, you get to see the fact that, you know, Percy is like, I'm gonna plug my ears with wax, but Annabeth is like, I want to see what like they tempt me with, because like that's the kind of person that Annabeth is. Like it's just, you know, like they really missed out on a lot of interesting things. There's the scene from like earlier in the book as well where before they get to Cersei's like spa island, where Percy and Annabeth are on the lifeboat, and Percy's like thinks that Tyson is dead, and like there's none of that in this movie. Percy thinks Tyson is dead for like a solid like 5 minutes, and it's like while other things are happening, there he has like a little bit to think about it, and then like, oh no, I'm kidding, he's fine. There's not really like a lot of development that happens there because he's dead for like 5 minutes in this movie, whereas like Percy thought he was dead for several days in the books. There's no scene with the Hydra either, just more stuff they left out. In the book, Annabeth was like a nobody like Odysseus. In the movie, they just try to like charge Polyphemus. It's dumb. Like, it's coming back to the whole, like, you know, it's like the Greek myths. It's like the whole point is that Percy Jackson lives in this like world where the Greek gods are real, and like in the books, what they did with that was they would make callbacks to Greek myths or Greek stories, like with the story structure or with like how they deal with a certain monster. They would like make callbacks to like these things that happen in Greek myths, or you know, like stuff like that. In this movie, they just do whatever sounds cool. So I don't really think they should have called it Percy Jackson. That's not what Percy Jackson is about. There's no Luke and Percy duel, which is such a shame, because I think of all the things that happen in Sea of Monsters, like that's one of the best things, because like you get to see how much better Percy has become, and you also, like, before the duel starts, you get to see how clever Percy is, because like he like does the iris messaging thing. And like in this, it's just like Luke gets the fleece and he puts it on Kronos, and then Kronos fight him. Like, I'll get to Kronos in a second, but I'm like, the Luke and Percy duel is really good. They should have kept it in. Like, it's so good. It's something that like, it's action as well. They clearly like that. The duel shows like how much Percy has progressed as like a sword fighter, and like how much more comfortable he is like in this world. What the movie does is just stupid. Let's get to that. Kronos is rising. He's made out of rocks, kind of like Disney's Hercules, which I was like watching that and I was like, I feel like I'm watching the Disney Hercules movie. Like, this is ridiculous. The reason that Luke doesn't get the fleece in the second book is that the main antagonist, or like the main like threat of this whole book series, is Kronos. Like, that's like the whole deal. If Luke got the fleece in the second book, they would have to fight Kronos in the second book, and then the thing is that there would be no more books. That's it. It's like, you're done. You've already fought him. So there's that. Luke knows that Riptide always comes back to Percy. Like he knows that Percy has a sword that will always return to his pocket. Percy's jacket had pockets. Why didn't he just be like, Percy, take off your jacket and like leave it here, so that he could like have Riptide? Like, Luke is just dumb in this movie. Tyson comes on last minute. He shouldn't have special water powers because he's not a half-blood. He just has like Cyclops powers, whatever the hell those are, like being fireproof and stuff. Cronus eats Luke. He eats him. He picks Luke up and then he eats him. I still don't know what the hell that was supposed to be. Okay. Cronus picks Luke up and then he eats him. Why would he do that? Why does he do that? Like, why? Okay. He eats Grover. Cronus calls Riptide the Cursed Blade, like it's the Cursed Blade from the prophecy. Maybe they were trying to mislead the audience, or maybe they were trying to actually say that Riptide is the Cursed Blade from the prophecy. Either way, whatever. I really like how in the books, the people who are like, you know, like gods or monsters or like mythological beings, they all call him Perseus. I love that so much. It just like, it's such a small thing, but it, like, you know, when someone calls him Perseus, you're like, oh, who are you? You're not mortal. I don't know, it's like it's such a small thing, but it makes it like more interesting. But they don't do that, obviously. In the book, Annabeth gets injured because she's pretending to be Odysseus. She's like calling herself nobody and like trying to distract Polyphemus and stuff. In this one, she gets injured because she's just there and the Manticore like gets her. She doesn't do anything in this entire movie. She doesn't do anything and then she gets hurt. Like, she's useless. Who is this? It's not my Annabeth. My Annabeth would have freaking fought that guy to hell and back. The trouble that Annabeth gets into in like the book in Sea of Monsters, it's like she's choosing to do those things. Like, she has agency. In this, she's just like, Percy, Percy, Percy. I mean, I know they like each other, but like, God, do things, Annabeth. You're come on. Yeah, it's not good. Then they have like the symbolic, like they give Clarice the fleece and she like puts it on Talia's tree. It's nice, but like the whole point of doing that in the book was that Percy was like, this is Talia's quest and we're gonna do this, and doing that saved their asses because Luke couldn't get his hands on the fleece. Like, that was literally the whole point of doing that in the book. Like, yeah, it's a nice gesture, but the reason it happens in the book is so that Luke doesn't get the fleece. Like, the golden fleece is white. It was made from the fur of a ram that had gold fur. It should be gold. This is just a nitpick, but it's just, I'm nitpicking, okay? It's fine. I can nitpick. At the end, all of the Half-Bloods they have these little like glasses of like nectar and they're like drinking nectar. They should all be spontaneously combusting. That's the end of the movie. It's stupid. They cut out most of the stuff from the books, which I don't know why, because they found time to add so much unnecessary shit, like the Cronus fight at the end, which is completely not needed. Also, what was their plan? That's not the Great Prophecy. Like what were they thinking of doing next? Cronus is defeated. Luke is gonna get eaten by Polyphemus, clearly. What the hell were they gonna do in the next book? Like, in the books, like, Luke is fine. He just doesn't have the fleas, which he didn't anyway. In the movie, he's in Polyphemus's cave, about to be food. Yeah, I don't know what they were planning to do. This whole like movie situation for the Percy Jackson books feels like no one put any amount of thought into it, and every time someone tried to put thought into it, they got like fired. That's what I think. The main difference between these movies and the books is that the books are steeped in Greek mythology. You can feel like the world permeated by the fact that these myths are real. Like, Rick Riordan has done a good job of making it feel like these myths exist in our world today, or like today, like 15 years ago, so like in 2005. But the movies just kind of, they wanted an action adventure, and they were like, oh, it would be nice to have like a Greek mythology themed action adventure, because you could remove like the Greek mythology elements. You could replace like the fact that Percy has magic water powers because of his dad being Poseidon, to being like Percy just has like magic, and it wouldn't change much. In the books, they're like, oh, this is how like this figure in Greek mythology fought this monster. We could try something similar. That's what they do with the Stymphalian birds. It's just not good, it's not good. Like, someone took a look at Percy Jackson and was like, these books suck, and they decided to change them, and it didn't get better. I don't have that thing that a lot of people have, that it should be like exactly the same as the book. I watched the Shadowhunters like TV adaptation, and I thought it was pretty good, even though they changed a lot of the stuff from the books. I just think when you change things, they should work for what you're doing with them. They changed Tyson's character and Tyson and Percy's relationship, but they still wanted them to have the same dynamic, which doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like, if you want to age up Percy and Annabeth and all of these other characters, that's fine, but you have to do something with that that's interesting. You can't just age them up and keep them the same as characters, and you can't age them up and be like they're completely different people to what you were expecting, because that's not gonna work either. Like, it should just be like, what would it be like if instead of 12, Percy was 16 at the time of the Lightning Thief happening? Like it should be recognizable, yet different. And what these movies are is that they are garbage. Listen, I just think that Percy Jackson deserves better. Let's hope the TV show can do it justice. I don't have very high hopes, but it's fine. I've talked for a very long time now, and this video is going to take me a while to edit because I have to watch the whole thing through. I don't know. These movies just like, I'm not like angry about them anymore. I'm just kind of disappointed because these books are so good. Like, I no longer, I'm an adult now. I no longer look up to Rick Riordan. I honestly have a lot of problems with him. But the one thing that I will say is that these books are so well written. Like, his work in like constructing the world and like making sure like a lot of the like bigger plot elements and stuff were consistent is so good. It's like of course you can nitpick them. I myself nitpick them sometimes for entertainment, but like they still hold up mostly, and they're still like, the characters are still interesting. The plot is still interesting even now, like all of these years later when I read them as an adult. And it's like it's like the people who made the movies just like read the books and they're like, no, we don't like that, or they didn't even read the books and they were just like, we'll do whatever we want. Okay, that's it. I'm done complaining about this movie. I am never going to watch it ever again for the rest of my entire life. So help me God, etc. If you like that video, please subscribe. I went through so much pain to make this video. Also, like, you've already watched over an hour of me talking. Might as well just subscribe to my channel now. And if you stuck around this long, thank you so much. You are very appreciated. I am like slowly losing the ability to form sentences. So I'm gonna go now, and also it's like 2 a.m. I'm going through it, guys. Okay, bye.